Roberto De Zerbi is crazy. But he's also a genius.
I think Roberto's one of the most influential. What pay attention I'm going to say, because I'm pretty convinced I'm right what I'm saying, is one of the most influential managers in the last 20 years.
He came in and saved Tottenham at a time where nobody wanted to go near them.
You mentioned yesterday that it felt like being underwater for 55 days. How does the air feel now?
I think it was the best day in football, and I'm not so young, and because when you win a trophy, or when you win a league, or when you are very nice moment, but when you stay up is better, is more intense as a moment. No?
They were so close to relegation, and people were treating them like the plague. But not De Zerbi. He embraced the challenge because he's fearless and unbelievably passionate about football. But that same passion also made De Zerbi a polarizing figure. From messy exits at Marseille and Brighton,
he had some problems and some issues with some members of the team.
To being a tactical genius.
The guy who talks the most, explains the most, and he wants from you 100% every day. Every session, 100%. Don't joke around, don't laugh. There's no time for that. He said we can laugh before, we can laugh afterwards. Training is no laughing. Concentrate on the control of the ball, of the passing, of the pace, of the positioning. If your position is, I'm telling you, 15 centimeters off, stop. And then you go here, it's like, what are you?
So he's screaming.
Woof. Bro, this guy, he takes off his pants.
Wow.
He takes off his pants, he rips off his shirt, he tackles you.
Roberto De Zerbi's journey as a manager is a story on its own. From the lower divisions of Italian football to leading Spurs into a new era, this is the story of Roberto De Zerbi. Before De Zerbi became one of Europe's most exciting managers, he had to build his reputation. His coaching journey started in Italy's lower leagues with Foggia, where people quickly noticed that he wasn't like most young coaches. While many teams in Serie C preferred to play direct football, De Zerbi wanted a side to dominate the ball. He believed in building attacks from the back, controlling possession, and taking risks, even if it sometimes led to mistakes. Those ideas would soon become his trademark.
I usually make a difference in build up goal kick, build up open play, and build up higher, no? And we change structure depending on where is the ball and how many striker we find as a opponent, no? The distance is 10, 12 meters. The midfielder in our half of the pitch, we are usually to put in this position, and number 9, number 10, depending on the characteristic of the player.
His next job came at Benevento in Serie A during the 2017-2018 season. On paper, it didn't go too well. Benevento were relegated, but the results don't really tell the full story. Even though he had one of the weakest squads in the league, De Zerbi refused to abandon his philosophy. Instead of sitting deep and defending against Italy's biggest clubs, Benevento continued trying to play out from the back. They often lost, but they earned a lot of respect across Europe because of the courage they showed. Then came the job that changed everything. In 2018, De Zerbi took over Sassuolo. They weren't one of Italy's biggest clubs, but under De Zerbi, they became one of the most entertaining teams to watch anywhere in Europe. They finished 8th in back-to-back seasons and narrowly missed out on European football. More importantly, they developed a style that made everyone take notice. De Zerbi's teams always wanted the ball. When building from the back, goalkeeper Andrea Consigli almost became an extra center back. The defenders spread wide, the midfield dropped deep to receive possession, and the wingers drifted inside to attack dangerous spaces. Everything had a purpose. purpose. They weren't just trying to keep possession for the sake of keeping possession. They wanted to tempt opponents into pressing before suddenly playing through them with quick vertical passes. Manuel Locatelli became the heartbeat of the team, controlling the tempo with his passing. Domenico Berardi constantly drifted inside to score and create chances, while Jeremy Boga stretched defenses with his incredible dribbling. The football was beautiful to watch. During the 2020-2021 season, Sassuolo actually averaged more possession than clubs like Juventus, Inter Milan, and AC Milan. For a club of their size, that was almost unheard of. Of course, there was a downside. De Zerbi's attacking style came with risks. Because his fullbacks pushed so high and the team pressed so aggressively, there was often space left behind the defense. Opponents regularly attacked those areas with quick runs and early crosses. Even in a season where Sassuolo finished 8th, they still had one of the weaker defensive records in Serie A and conceded more headed goals than any other team. But De Zerbi never saw that as a reason to change. For him, dominating games was always worth the risk. His philosophy was on full display in November of 2020 when Sassuolo traveled to Napoli and completely outplayed them, winning 2-0 away from home. They kept around 60% of the ball, calmly played through Napoli's press, and showed that a relatively small club could go toe-to-toe with one of Italy's biggest teams without changing its identity. By the end of his time at Sassuolo, Roberto De Zerbi had become one of the most respected tactical minds in European football. In 2021, Roberto De Zerbi took on a completely new challenge. For the first time in his coaching career, he left Italy and became the manager of Ukrainian giants Shakhtar Donetsk. The club wanted someone who could bring exciting attacking football back to the team and help them regain control of Ukrainian football from their biggest rivals, Dynamo Kiev. De Zerbi was the perfect fit. His possession-based style quickly took shape, but he also adapted to the challenges of the Ukrainian league. Many teams defended with almost everyone behind the ball there, so De Zerbi focused on creating overloads in midfield to pull defenders out of position before attacking the spaces they left behind. It worked brilliantly. He also helped develop 2 players who would go on to become stars. The biggest success story was Mudryk. That's right, Mudryk actually used to be seen as a good player. Before De Zerbi arrived, Mudryk was seen as an exciting but inconsistent young winger who hadn't fully broken into the first team. De Zerbi, though, believed in him, worked closely with him every day, and helped improve his decision-making in the final third. He encouraged Mudryk to play with confidence while also teaching him when to pass, when to dribble, and when to attack space. The transformation was incredible. By the end of De Zerbi's time at the club, Mudryk had become one of the most exciting young wingers in Europe. Because remember, Arsenal were after this guy, and Chelsea believed in him so much that they overpaid, all because of De Zerbi's coaching. Another player who really flourished was Sudakov. De Zerbi trusted the young midfielder in big matches and made him an important part of Shakhtar's midfield. His calmness under pressure and ability to play through opposition lines fit perfectly into De Zerbi's system. The results soon followed. In September of 2021, De Zerbi won his first major trophy of his managerial career as Shakhtar beat Dynamo Kiev 3-0 to lift the Ukrainian Super Cup. By the time the league reached this winter break, Shakhtar were sitting near the top of the table and playing some of the best football anywhere in Eastern Europe. Then everything changed though. On February 24th, 2022, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Football instantly became the least important thing in everyone's lives. Missile strikes began across the country, airspace closed, fuel became scarce, and De Zerbi, his coaching staff, foreign players and their families suddenly found themselves trapped inside a hotel in Kiev. Many foreign nationals were being told to leave the country as quickly as possible, but De Zerbi actually refused. He made it clear that he would not leave Ukraine until every one of his players and staff members were safely out of the country. Instead of only thinking about himself, he stayed with his squad during one of the most frightening moments of their lives. Working alongside club officials and diplomats, De Zerbi helped make sure the entire foreign group was safely evacuated across the border before finally leaving himself. A few months later, with Ukrainian football still suspended because of the war, De Zerbi and Shakhtar agreed to part ways. His time in Ukraine lasted less than a year, but it left a lasting impact. In September of 2022, Roberto De Zerbi got the biggest opportunity of his career. Brighton had just lost Graham Potter to Chelsea, and many people wondered whether the club could keep improving after losing the manager who had transformed them. Well, De Zerbi took these guys even further, made them even better.
An amazing forward-thinking club. When you play against them, they can completely embarrass you with a style of play. They can embarrass you as a coach because they make you feel inadequate. They're just a brilliantly run football team with a manager that is potentially one of the great managers of all time.
We've seen that style again, haven't we, this season? Roberto De Zerbi's side, 4 goals in both games so far this season.
You have to have the quality of play, you have idea, you have to have the quality of players, and I think the most important in football is blood, heart and balls, but no balls, normal balls. Balls You understand, I think.
He inherited a squad full of technically gifted players and immediately introduced his own ideas. It didn't take long before Brighton had become one of the most entertaining teams to watch anywhere in Europe. As we have seen time and time again, everyone eventually falls in love with De Zerbi ball. One of the most unique parts of his system happened right at the start of every attack. Instead of rushing the ball forward, Brighton's defenders would often stop completely. Lewis Dunk or Adam Webster would stand with the sole of their boot resting on top of the ball, almost inviting the opposition to come and press them. It looked risky, but that's exactly what De Zerbi wanted. The moment the opposition stepped forward, Brighton exploded. A few quick one-touch passes, and they would suddenly break the press completely. Within seconds, Brighton had turned a dangerous situation near their own goal into a huge attacking opportunity. Then came the next part of their plan. Because so many defenders had been dragged into the middle of the pitch, the wide areas were left completely open. That's where players like Mitoma and Solly Marsh became so dangerous, receiving the ball with space to run directly at defenders in 1v1 situation. Anyone on an island versus Mitoma, it's barbecue chicken. It was beautiful to watch, and it worked against everyone. Brighton demolished Chelsea 4-1, completely outplaying Graham Potter just weeks after he had left the club. Then they traveled to the Emirates and stunned Arsenal with a brilliant 3-0 win, a result that effectively ended Arsenal's title challenge. Even Pep's Manchester City couldn't fully stop them. Brighton earned a 1-1 draw while matching the eventual treble winners for long periods, earning praise from Pep Guardiola himself.
Well, first of all, the season started off really well, and then we got the phone call and Graham left soon after. And it was a difficult situation for the club. We're always prepared with potential future head coaches, but you never know, particularly in the early part of a season, middle of a season, what may come when we hire a new head coach. So fortunately, we hired the perfect man for the job, Mr. Roberto De Zerbi, and he's come in, been a breath of fresh air. The players play for him so magnificently. His motivational skills, tactical skills, and getting improvements out of our players have been absolutely superb. So we're delighted. It's an amazing achievement for Roberto, his staff, and of course all of our players.
By the end of the 2022-2023 season, Brighton had finished 6th in the Premier League. It was the highest league finish in the club's history, and it secured them European football for the very first time.
Probably at the start I wouldn't think that we can develop that quick, but I think we always improved every single year. We improved as a club, we improved in every single department.
It's like so much tactics and so much, he asked for a lot of things. So I was like, a lot of training sessions I needed, and then I started believing in the way we played.
For a club of Brighton's size, this was an incredible achievement. But despite all the success, problems were beginning to appear behind the scenes. Brighton sold pretty much all of their key players, like Moises Caicedo, Alexis McAllister, and Marco Correa. De Zerbi wanted proven replacements. He believed the club needed experienced players who could help them compete both in the Premier League and Europe.
A deal of respect between you and the Brighton boss Roberto De Zerbi. How in particular does he make it difficult for your team to play against?
Because he's brave. It doesn't matter which opponent he faces. He wanna impose his game. The process, but he does the build-up with the keeper, central defenders, the holding midfielders. They are just exceptional. So many reasons. So I think he's a perfect person to be in the world football because his teams are so attractive. Was in Italy, in Ukraine, and now here. So even with that, he had a lot of problems this season with many injuries. Important players left in the beginning of the season, and still the way he plays is completely recognizable and really good. I'm a spectator always when I'm sitting, always I like to watch it, and when I'm opening, I suffer a little.
Brighton's owner, Tony Bloom, saw things differently. He wanted to stick with the recruitment model that had made the club so successful, signing young, undervalued players with high potential instead of just spending big on established stars. Now, you could argue that neither side was really in the wrong. They just had different visions for the future. But as the season went on, De Zerbi became more open about his frustrations, publicly questioning the club's transfer strategy and squad depth. It became clear that the relationship was heading in one direction. At the end of the 2023-2024 season, Brighton and De Zerbi agreed to part ways. His time on the South Coast had only lasted 2 seasons, but by the time he left, Roberto De Zerbi had gone from being one of football's best kept secrets to one of the most respected managers in Europe. After leaving Brighton, Roberto De Zerbi did not choose an easy job. He actually chose one of the toughest in Europe. In the summer of 2024, he became the new manager of Marseille, a club with incredible supporters, huge expectations, and constant pressure to win. They had just endured a poor season in Ligue 1, finishing 8th and missing out on European football. For De Zerbi, it was the perfect challenge, and just like at his previous clubs, he quickly put his own stamp on the team. He stayed true to his possession-based style, but also showed he could adapt. Instead of sticking to one formation, Marseille regularly changed shape during matches. Sometimes they built attacks with a back four, other times they shifted into a back three. The extra midfielder gave Marseille more options on the ball and allowed their attacking players to push further forward. In midfield, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg became the team's leader. He controlled the tempo, protected the defense, and helped to organize De Zerbi's aggressive press. Alongside him, Adrien Rabiot provided energy and power, giving Marseille a strong balance in the middle of the pitch. Out wide, Mason Greenwood became one of the team's biggest attacking threats. Playing on the right, he constantly cut inside onto his stronger left foot, while Luis Henrique stretched the pitch from the opposite side. The football was exciting, as it always is under De Zerbi, but just like his previous clubs, De Zerbi's demanding personality soon created tension behind the scenes. No player was bigger than his standards. For example, Greenwood started the season on fire, scoring 5 goals in his first 4 league matches. But goals alone weren't enough. De Zerbi became frustrated with Greenwood's work rate, especially when the team didn't have the ball. He wanted his forwards to press relentlessly, track back, and work just as hard defensively as they did going forward. After a disappointing performance against Lens, De Zerbi publicly challenged Greenwood and even dropped him to the bench. The message was that talent alone couldn't guarantee a place in his team, though some people will argue that De Zerbi should never even have played Greenwood to begin with based on his past. As the season went on, the pressure inside the dressing room increased. Training sessions became more intense.
Bravi, solo per dirvi bravi.
Emotions regularly boiled over after poor results, and there were heated discussions following defeats to Reims and Monaco. But De Zerbi wasn't fighting alone. Senior players like Højbjerg and Rabiot backed the manager completely, demanding the same level of commitment from everyone else in the squad. Despite all the drama behind the scenes, though, Marseille kept winning. They finished second in Ligue 1, secured qualification for the Champions League, and produced some brilliant attacking performances along the way. There was the 5-1 demolition of Montpellier, another 5-1 win over Saint-Etienne, and an entertaining 3-2 win over Lyon that perfectly summed up De Zerbi's football. Fast, fearless, and always entertaining. Now, he ended up leaving by mutual agreement in February of 2026. According to reports, there was issues between De Zerbi and club management. Kind of the same story with him. It proved that wherever he goes, there's almost always drama, but there's also almost always success.
And to come in training ground on Monday afternoon with a smile, because otherwise they go home immediately.
When De Zerbi arrived at Tottenham, he was taking over a club fighting Premier League survival. Spurs had completely fallen apart. The confidence was gone, the tactics weren't working anymore, and every week the pressure kept getting bigger. Relegation was becoming a very real possibility. De Zerbi had one job: save Tottenham. Now, most managers in that situation would have made the team harder to beat. You know, Sam Allardyce ball. They would have sat deeper, played more direct football, and focused on simply surviving. De Zerbi did the exact opposite. He believed Tottenham's biggest problem wasn't their ability, it was their fear. So instead of asking his players to play it safe, he encouraged them to be even braver. From his very first training session, he completely changed how Spurs built their attacks. Vicario was told to hold on to the ball for as long as possible, even inside his own 6-yard box. Rather than clearing it long, Tottenham deliberately invited the opposition to press them. Once again, it looked incredibly risky, but that was the whole point. The more opponents committed players forward, the more space opened up behind them. Draw teams into the middle, play through the pressure with quick passes, and then release the wingers into huge spaces out wide. It was classic De Zerbi football. Just as importantly, he changed the mentality inside the dressing room. He told the players that making mistakes while trying to play brave football was completely acceptable. What wasn't acceptable was playing scared. Man, he would hate Rice because that brother does not pass forward. On the touchline, he brought incredible energy. Every successful pass through the opposition's press was celebrated like a goal. Every player knew their manager trusted them, even if things went wrong. Instead of putting pressure on his squad, De Zerbi took all of it onto himself. And Tottenham started believing again. In just a matter of weeks, the Italian had done far more than just save Tottenham from relegation. He had given the club an identity again. The fear was gone, the belief was back, and for the first time in months, Spurs fans finally had something to be excited about. So seeing the progress, the Tottenham board backed De Zerbi financially, bringing in the players who fit his plan. At the back, they signed defenders who are comfortable on the ball and don't panic when they're pressed, like Van Hecke and Senesi. In midfield, they brought in technical players who are willing to do the dirty work, like Matheus Fernandes and Tonali. Every signing had been made with De Zerbi's football in mind. This season, Spurs fans should expect to see the complete version of De Zerbi ball. Last season was about survival, this season is about making an impact. And when you look at De Zerbi's career, there's one thing that becomes very clear. Whether it was Sassuolo, Shakhtar, Brighton, Marseille, or Tottenham, his teams always develop a clear identity. He refuses to compromise. Yes, that stubbornness has sometimes created problems away from the pitch, but it's also the reason his teams play some of the most exciting football in Europe. And for Tottenham, that mentality could be exactly what they've been missing. For years, Spurs have been criticized for lacking belief in the biggest moments, and well, Zerbi doesn't accept that mindset. To see just how good this Tottenham team is, you have to watch this video right here.